not bad for an old man.
Well, for our audience, once again, we do a weekly, I hate the word politics, but we do a weekly expose called Myrtle Beach Government and Myrtle Beach Politics. We
Well,
call it,
don't hold it to Myrtle Beach. Just
well, Myrtle Beach SC News is our business, but we call
yeah,
it,
but you know what I'm saying. It covers Horry County, covers the state, may cover
it
the
covers
federal.
everything. Today we're going to cover everything from Hampton, South Carolina, all the way to Columbia, down to Horry County Courthouse,
There you
and
go.
a Supreme Court trial. But we do this every Thursday. We try to do it at the same time. You guys usually see it right around 1:30, 2 o'clock on our news feed. Paul Gable is, for those of you who aren't familiar with him, I think he's the best journalist in Horry County. And he also is the publisher of the Grand Strand Daily. You should do yourself a favor and read that publication. It's not daily. It is not daily, actually. It comes out,
No,
a couple times a week?
no more. Paul's being lazy because he's old.
Well, but it is.
No, but it's gonna. Let me say this to you, okay? I'll publish this Sunday, and then we'll do some routine things from then on. I've just taken a bit of a hiatus from.
And you should. So you've earned that. Now, the Grand Strand Daily, I will say this about it: it is comprehensive. It's comprehensive. It's, you want to know what's going on. You want the backstory. You want contextually the whole story. This is a guy you want to listen to. So we're going to start today. We're going to talk about national news, but it's local news. We're going to talk about this guy. This guy's name is Alex Murdaugh. He is his family has a long history in the area of Colleton, Walterboro, that whole southern low country area, Hamptons. He's basically a state insider, is he not, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. One of the most insiders, who got a guy who's through the years donated over $100,000 to Henry McMaster's campaigns.
Now, please understand this, folks. Paul just said something very telling. This was back when Henry McMaster was not our governor. He was our attorney general. There was a guy named Boulware. Are you familiar with the Boulware case, Paul?
I am, and we must state that there still is property co-owned by Murdaugh and the Boulwares.
Yeah, so the Boulwares had a little fishing boat. Is that accurate?
Well, they had a fleet.
Yeah, and the
6
fleet
or 7, something like that,
got caught by the Coast Guard. Apparently, there were some drugs dumped over the side of one of the boats.
Something like 5,000 pounds.
A small amount, 5,000 pounds, give or take.
Now this is back in 1983.
Understand that this is when we had an SC attorney general. His name was what, Paul? Well, who was that attorney general?
No. He was the not an attorney general. He was the South Carolina attorney appointed by Ronald Reagan for the state of South Carolina.
So he was the South Carolina attorney appointed by Reagan. This is
a federal attorney.
And this is a guy named Henry somebody. What was his last name?
Yeah, his last name was McMaster.
He's our current governor. So this riverboat captain is the key witness in this case. He gets run over by a truck in Florida crossing the road. Is that accurate, Paul?
That is totally accurate.
And all of a sudden, McMaster, who's one of the biggest recipients of Murdaugh money, decides that he can't bring the case to trial because...
Well, let's throw it. There were 3 defendants in that case: Boulware and his son, and this captain.
Correct. But the captain had agreed to turn state's evidence on Boulware and others.
Yes, and when the captain got killed in Florida, where Florida State is.
Correct. Crossing the road, going to get food.
Yes, he got run over, and all of a sudden, Henry didn't have enough evidence to convict the Boulware, so the whole case was dropped.
Okay, so we know that the judge in this case, Newman, is a former law partner of Ronnie Sabb. for our audience, just so you know, Ronnie Sabas owns something called the JMSC. He's a high-powered legislator in the state, and he also was one of the biggest recipients of Murdoch money, along with so many others. I mean, should the system be on trial with this case, Paul?
Well, the system is on trial with the case because it's Murdaugh. The Murdaugh family was part of the oligarchy that ran South Carolina through, and they ran South Carolina through backroom influence, through considerable campaign donations across the board. I might interject one thing here. Our current representative for the 7th Congressional District to Congress, Russell Fry, has received Murdaugh money. All you have to do is check his campaign documents.
Correct. So basically, up to the present moment, the Murdochs have had influence in our state all the way back for 86 years.
Well, let's say up until, what was it, July 6th or
well,
something?
yeah, when the walls started closing in on him.
Yeah.
But isn't there an effort by the state to make this just about Murdoch and he's a crazy guy and
absolutely. Absolutely.
Because ultimately, isn't he the Jerry Epstein of South Carolina now? All the secrets die with him.
The Jeff Epstein of South Carolina?
He's a person who is holding a lot of secrets.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's hoping by holding those secrets that he gets off, lightened sentence. I have no idea how this plays out, but do you believe that this will have legs, or do you think this will be contained, as people like Luke Rankin want it contained? And Luke Rankin, by the way, is a Horry County senator. He's a very powerful on the judiciary, picks our judges. He picked Carmen Mullen, who is tight and good buddies with dear old
Also,
Mr.
if I'm not mistaken, a recipient of Murdaugh contributions in the past.
Oh, yeah. Luke Rankin got money. So, long story short, they want this guy to go down on his own sword, and they don't want to make this about anyone but him.
That's right. They certainly don't want it to get out into the public about all the connections and everything that has been going on through 40 years.
Paul, who's this lawyer right here with the glasses on? I don't know if you can see what I'm circling, but the guy in the very far left, who's that guy? Who's his lawyer?
His lawyer is Dick Harpootlian.
Yeah, that's the guy you see with the glasses that we saw just with the glasses there.
And let's make a point too. Harpootlian, of course, is well known as a very highly influential Democrat in the state.
Probably one of the most powerful. Would you not agree?
Probably. Now,
Todd Rutherford, Dick Harpootlian, they're up there.
Yeah. And my point is that the state is not Republican and Democrat. It is oligarchy. And
you got it.
And it makes no difference what your party affiliation supposedly is. And Harpootlian dates back to the time when all of South Carolina was a Democrat.
Correct. And so does Luke Rankin. When they were Democrats.
So does Rankin. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, and all your Republicans today, except those that have come in from out of state, and I don't know their lineage, but your native-born Republicans today have Democrats in their lineage.
So you're saying
their parents weren't Democrats, their grandparents certainly were. So let's tell it like it is in South Carolina, is an oligarchy, and that's what it is. It's run by one group, and that group will put whatever affiliation they think they need to on their behind their name, but it doesn't make a difference. They're still part of the group.
So you're saying that the Southern low country aristocrats calling themselves Republicans might not be actually conservative Republicans?
Well, they aren't. They have no, in my opinion, they have no political affiliation in their own minds, except with the oligarchy of which they are members.
Well, let me say it more bluntly than Paul's saying it. They have no compass. It's protect the aristocracy, is it not?
Of course.
Protect the Southern aristocracy, maybe.
Protect the system.
Protect the system. You're going to see in this Murdoch trial, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, you're going to see protect the system played out as well as it can be played out. Now, I don't know. Well, there's reporters everywhere. But unless you're local, you don't really know all the backstory here. And I don't know that the national media, the Nancy Graces, the NBC News.
Well, Nancy Grace isn't a reporter. She's a nut. But
whatever. Those people probably aren't going to
say this. You certainly got CBS and all that group down here. Has any of them dug up the connection to Bullware and the Henry McMaster thing back in '83? Not that I know of.
And it goes deeper. There's other. I mean, I could sit here. We could talk about this for 2 hours. We can throw in the Quins. I could really dig up some dirt here. And people, if you don't know who the Quins are, they're a political consulting group. But it's basically Southern aristocracy protecting itself. And this guy's got to be the fall guy. Does he not, Paul?
Yeah.
He's going to have to be the fall guy, and he's going to have to keep his mouth shut. They need him to keep his mouth shut. I'm told, and the news reports reporting, that he's a drug addict.
Well, he said he was. He turned himself into a clinic, remember?
Yeah, that was convenient. I mean,
well,
yes.
That's after the gate started to open, and he hooked it down to Florida to be into some kind of a treatment center. But when he was discharged that day, they were there to arrest him because SLED had warrants out on him.
And there's going to be a lot you're seeing right now on TV, a lot of the details about phone records and the way the SLED investigates the story. It's powerful, but it only tells you what happened in this particular 2 murders, or maybe a couple of related murders will come out. I don't know. We probably will never get the whole story here. Perhaps in 25 years, I don't know. But there's a lot more there than's there.
There's a lot of there.
Okay, so I think we've covered Mr. Murdoch. I do want to talk with you about something going on here on next Thursday, 1 week from today. Coastal Carolina University is going to have a Supreme Court trial.
Here, the Supreme Court is going to sit.
They're going to have a hearing
next Thursday. Yeah, they're going to hear several cases. The most important of which is the case against, in my opinion, is the case against the city of Myrtle Beach.
Now, of note, I'm just going to note this.
But no, wait a minute. Let's. All right, good. I'm glad you brought up Kay.
Well, Kay Hearn's a Conway Supreme Court justice that retired effectively yesterday, but she will be on the bench for this. This will be her last bench hearing. And she's from Conway. She is a liberal. I can say this. She's a liberal justice who came down and wrote the deciding opinion in the legislation that was written about abortion here in the state. She said it was basically an invalid law, and she wrote her opinion basically saying that the state didn't have the right to pass this law. It was an invasion of a woman's rights to privacy. That upset a lot.
She said that it in her opinion, she stated that it ran counter to the state constitution.
She did.
So it was a 3-2 decision, and it overturned what is effectively known here as the heartbeat bill.
Yes, and Jay Few sided with her
to an abortion after a heartbeat is determined. Okay,
and Jay Few, another liberal justice, decided with her. They're going to replace her with a
but let's state it as it is. Kay has reached the age of forced retirement,
and she's retiring, and this will be her last hearing.
Case that she hears. But let's talk just one bit about. There were 3, as I understand, there were 3 people who applied in the as is said in South Carolina for the Supreme Court opening that will occur when Kay is gone. 2 women and a man. Now, recently, if you followed it at all, you'll find out that the 2 women have withdrawn their applications,
which is common in this state.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, it's common that we get the guy we
has
want.
called for a change in how judges are appointed in South Carolina. He wants the governor to make the appointments for all judges subject to the advice and consent of the Senate, or maybe even the whole General Assembly, because the whole General Assembly votes on them now. So it might be up or down vote by the combined General Assembly on his appointments. But here you have a situation that occurs over and over and over and over. The insiders up in Columbia want a certain person to be the judgeship. So rather than have any kind of floor fight or what have you over nominations, a group goes out or a single messenger is sent to the other applicants who aren't going to get the job. And they say, well, just withdraw your application. It'll look better for you next time you apply for something. In other words, don't contest what we intend to do, and we'll all look better for it. The whole system is rigged.
So, Paul, I'll ask you a question. Who is Merle Smith?
He's the Speaker of the South Carolina House.
And he wrote the legislation that basically became the heartbeat bill. He was very involved in it. He's also sits on something called the JMSC. What's that? Well,
that's the group in the state that supposedly determines whether judges are qualified.
And 99%
applicants for judgeships are qualified.
And 99% of the people they pick get approved. They become judges
because they make their choice there. And then they go out to the other candidates and they say, well, you're very well qualified for this, but it's probably not your time. So it'd be better for you to pull your application, and then you'll be thought better of next time around. I mean, that's the game that's played.
I'm on good authority that Merle Smith was livid about Kay Hearn's written opinion on this heartbeat bill. Livid. Do you think it's an accident that a highly conservative upstate judge, is getting appointed to the bench?
No, and what is interesting is, was it McMaster or was it Alan Wilson that made application for the court to rehear that case?
It's Wilson.
Okay, so Wilson made an application for a rehearing. We'll get rid of Kay Hearn. We'll get this conservative on. They'll reconsider the case and then find that the first 3-2 decision was wrong, and therefore the heartbeat bill is valid. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
So, but let me just say this to you, Paul. You do know the legislature, the General Assembly, and the Senate are going to rewrite this law and send it back.
I think they're trying to actually avoid having to do that.
We'll see.
Kay retires. She leaves. This new guy comes to the bench. They reconsider the decision and overturn their own decision. Yeah, that's what I see happening. And that avoids all the mess of having months and months while the stuff is going through the legislative process of being reconsidered, and all of a sudden it's law that wasn't law 6 months ago. I mean, the whole thing is absurd. It makes the legal system in the United States, or at least in the state of South Carolina, for what it is, a joke.
Well, I want to get into this overlay issue, which she's going to hear. It's going to be our last hearing. Before I do, though, I want to ask you, because you know, we have new blood on county council. We have this Freedom Caucus now at the state level. And we have, inside the HCGOP, inside the GOP, we have different strains or different tribes. I'll use that word. Is this a year where perhaps little or a lot what does this 2023 look like as far as getting things passed that are significant?
Depends on your definition of significant, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just wonder. You got the freedom.
Will we see bills go through the legislature that addresses the infrastructure needs of South Carolina?
That's the
I
question.
doubt it, except maybe in a minor way. Will we see bills go through that attempt to do a better job of recruiting industry to the state? I doubt it. Will we see bills go through that deal with immediate local issues to powerful legislators up there? Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay,
It's a
so
joke, David.
I understand that, Paul, but people have to live in this state, and people have to find or have to hope for some sort of governance that's going to affect their lives. This is a year where we're predicted there's going to be a recession. Um, I don't know how severe it's going to be. Fed hiked the rate yesterday of what, a quarter. I think they hiked the prime rate, and it didn't seem to affect Wall Street a whole lot. But they're expecting inflation to continue to be a problem, so they're trying to do something about that. That affects home sales. Horry County is one of the biggest real estate boom towns in America. I'm wondering if the boom will be the boom it has been. I don't know.
Oh, I think it's probably going to subside a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. So,
as it probably should.
Yeah, well, it's been going on way too long. Okay, well, we'll see. 2023 is going to be
interesting. Keep throwing up housing developments on farm to market roads and expect everything to be okay without doing something to fix those roads, right?
I totally agree. We need infrastructure. And I think Ride 4, which is coming down the pike, could be a big help.
It'll be a help. It won't be a big help. I was at a meeting that Wayne Gray, who was the chairman of the Ride 4 Advisory Committee, did for a group down in Carolina Forest, the Carolina Forest Civic Association, as a matter of fact. And he was explaining it. But the thing that you got to understand is I spoke to Wayne for a few minutes before the formal meeting began. The estimate right now is that if we stop building today and only try and service what we have already, not stop building today, if we stop approving rezonings today and only try and service what has already been approved for rezoning and construction or construction going on, the county's needs for infrastructure are approximately $4 billion by today's money. Okay.
Right.
The Ride 4, as it's being planned, in accordance with state law, will raise about $800 million. So that's 20%
of what we need.
And of course, those projects will be spread out over probably 7 years, maybe a little bit more, depending how long it takes to complete them. So for the next decade, because we're just finishing up Ride 3 now, Ride 4, if it gets approved, will handle about 20% of the infrastructure needs of the county. That still leaves us with 80% not handled, and we're
still growing.
And we're still growing. So yeah, Ride 4 will help, and it will help a lot in certain areas, which is what these ride programs do, But this is a state, and maybe all states are this way, that they seem to be, but it's a state where there's no advanced planning, and there's no actual consideration. When you come up for rezoning, we have these supposed traffic studies, and so the traffic studies tell us this is going to happen, and then you pump these new subdevelopments in, and we find out that the traffic studies are way off, and we've created all kinds of bottlenecks and traffic nightmares around the county. The problem with government in the United States, in my opinion, is it has always been reactionary. If it has never been proactive, and probably it never will.
It's proactive when it serves the government, but other than that, it's really not. With that said, I want to honor your time, and I want to talk about this overlay. What this trial or Supreme Court hearing that's going to be heard at Coastal about this overlay. Paul, what's an overlay? What happened here? Tell our readers what happened here. I call it municipal overreach. I don't know how you feel about it. Tell us what happened here.
In the city of Myrtle Beach,
yes,
there was a proposal to have what they call an overlay district. In other words, that's something that has its own special significant requirements in addition to normal zoning requirements and what have you. And they put an overlay district, which is essentially along Ocean Boulevard, from 6th Avenue South to what? 21st Avenue North.
It was about 10 blocks, 10 to 14 blocks. Let's say 10 to 14 blocks.
Across Ocean Boulevard.
Correct.
That effectively banned the sale of CBD products, cigars, cigarettes, pipe tobacco, and they might have had something in there about sexually oriented material, whatever that might be.
So let me ask you this.
And that stuff was banned from a certain section of Ocean Boulevard, and the overlay I think goes back a block or two. But
yeah, it does. Can you buy those products anywhere else in Myrtle Beach?
You can buy them everywhere else in Myrtle Beach, and you have the absurdity that the thing breaks at certain spots. So there's a store within the overlay that that cannot sell these products, but there's a store across the next street, across the intervening street, that can.
And that would be the mayor's daughter's store.
I don't know if it's the mayor's daughter's store.
She married the guy that owns the Tsunami store. She does. It's the mayor's daughter's store. Can.
Okay, if it is. So I think that the overlay was put in to run those, especially the t-shirt shops, to run them out of business in that overlay area. And I think I don't think it had anything to do with the mayor's daughter. I think, frankly, it had to do with this supposed redevelopment. If you can run the businesses out, then you go ahead and make a ridiculously low bid, and the city is great on buying property, right? Commercial property. They go in and make a bid on these stores that are now empty because you've run them out of business. And they become part of this conglomeration of lots owned by the city of Myrtle Beach in what used to be a viable commercial district. Now, I think that was the intent. It hasn't worked out quite as well.
Well, the merchants have stood together and stood strong. Their number one selling product.
And they've sued the city over the fact that the overlay district is positively illegal.
And it's going to be heard at the Supreme Court level at Coastal Carolina 1 week from today.
Yeah, it's going through its other judicial processes. And
why
is it illegal? Does the city have a right to determine zoning?
Well, if they do, all of these products are legal.
Well, they do have a right to this.
Okay, but
they have a right to determine within the confines of state law. And let's make that, let's go back a bit. The city of Myrtle Beach in, when was it? 2008, 2009, I think, said that you have to wear a helmet if you're riding a motorcycle in the city. Remember the helmet law, famous helmet law?
Very much, yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. So then the state law, which supersedes city law, because the city is nothing but a subdivision of state government, as the county is a subdivision of state government. It's not its own unique thing. They have to conform to state laws that are put in. And there is no state law requirement to wear helmets for motorcycles. So the city exceeded its authority under state law. it wound up in the Supreme Court and they got slapped down and they had to pay back all the fines that they put in. But the whole thing is, it wasn't about the safety of motorcycle riders. It was about getting rid of the two big motorcycle rallies in May that had come to the area for 40 some years before. That's what it was about. How can we discourage these people from coming? Well, we'll force them to wear helmets where they never had to before. And they'll see that as an infringement of their personal rights, and they'll go to some other place that'll have a motorcycle event, right? That's what it was all about, and it failed.
But let's talk about consequences. All of these products are legal products, correct?
Not only legal, being sold legally throughout the rest of the city. Now,
how about the rest of the nation?
Well, and the rest of the nation, yeah.
Okay, so if this does somehow find its way to be sanctioned by the Supreme Court, by the state Supreme Court, the city could say you can sell Coke here, Coca-Cola, but you can't sell Coke here, here, and here. We can only sell Pepsi here, here, and here. Is that accurate, or am I overstating things?
No, I think that's valid. But the thing is, we have something called the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which overrides even state constitutions, and that says that there will be equal application of the law. In other words, what's legal in one area is going to be legal in another. One commercial area of the city is going to be legal in another commercial area of the city, or the law is invalid. Now, that's the simple decision here.
Okay, so I attended a trial last week where the city of North Myrtle Beach lost in an overreach case where they tried to penalize a man for bringing people in during a rainstorm when there was COVID laws in place. Why are these cities suddenly operating in such anti-business ways, anti-small business ways? What's going on, Paul? Why are cities becoming so?
Well, in the North Myrtle Beach case, I'm not sure that isn't a personal contest against the guy who owns the restaurant, because he's just a guy who believes in all those things that we have in the Constitution, freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and that kind of thing. But these cities are more and more. Well, let's look. You had North Myrtle Beach, right?
Yeah.
When North Myrtle Beach generally reelects its incumbent council members if they run for reelection, Myrtle Beach certainly does the same thing. You got people here making laws that think they are above the law, in my opinion. They're not out to serve the public. Anybody who was out to serve the public and the citizens and the business owners of the community would not be making laws like this to hurt certain businesses, which is what they're doing.
So you talked about a redistricting in Myrtle Beach. Tell our audience what a public-private partnership is.
Oh, that seems to be anything the government chooses to make it at any one particular time, doesn't it? I mean, a public-private partnership is supposed to be where they come up with some idea that you got, let's say they want to build a new baseball stadium, which is one of the things thrown out for this area. And the city looks at its finances and says, we can't possibly afford to do this. So we're going to need to get private money to go along with this. And we'll have some kind of facilities in there that will have commercial stuff other than just baseball times. And so they try and attract, and maybe through some kind of tax incentives or what have you, bring some private investors into this consortium which wants to build this new baseball stadium, for lack of a better example. The problem that I understand with the city is it doesn't have any private. It
doesn't, but it's trying to. Who's been the biggest buyer of land in this district we're talking about?
Well, the city.
See, $30 million so far.
And whose land sits right at the edges of that
So I'm a
district.
small business owner, and I'm operating downtown. I find all of a sudden I get charged something called a mid tax. It's an extra penny on everything I sell so the town can redevelop. Ah, interesting. Then I find out, oh, my products, which are legal, are suddenly can't be sold in my store. It's my number one seller. Then I find out the city's bought up all this property around me, and they're looking for a private equity firm to partner with, either in profit sharing rights or in some sort of government private practice. Paul, does all this sound American to you?
No, actually, it's what they tried and failed to do in the Soviet Union, and they tried and failed to do in China
Can
and
you
all of
believe
Eastern Europe that was behind the Iron Curtain. It was government. It was government planning, which was horrible.
this is happening right here in Horry County in Myrtle Beach?
Sure, I can. There's money involved for certain people. You know, look at it. Look at it this way. The Soviet Union owned everything, right? All the businesses and what have you were owned by the by the government, right?
Right.
And when the Soviet Union fell, and we got the Russian Federation out of it, which is not much of a federation. It's basically only Russia. They sold off all this stuff. You know, all of a sudden the government that owned this stuff didn't exist anymore. So the new government got it by default, got ownership by default, but it needed money. So it sold off the steel plants and the oil companies and what have you that the state owned to guys who used to be in the KGB and had stolen a lot of money during their time and could afford to buy them. And that's how you got the Russian oligarchs of today, right? The whole system is corrupt, but you had to be an insider to take advantage of it. And that's what you have going on. Is it American? Heck no.
Welcome to the new America. Well, we're going to be following.
Yeah, it might be the new American. That's the sad part of it. It might be.
Well, we're going to be following it. I will see you here next Thursday. Guys, we'll be doing a follow-up on several of these stories. We're going to certainly follow up on the Murdoch issue, and this trial this hearing will be at Coastal 1 week from today. We will go on that morning, and I will be at the courthouse. We're going to be covering this thing. I think, Paul, Grand Strand Daily may cover it as well, correct?
Oh, I'll write a few stories about it because, you know, frankly, what we have on and yeah, we can call it a trial. I guess what we have on trial here is whether the Supreme Court of South Carolina will obey the law. That's what we have to see.
It's a hearing of record notice. It's very significant. Would you not agree?
Sure it is.
It fundamentally changes the city business relationships throughout the state of South Carolina.
It basically is, can the city pick winners and losers among business owners?
Can any city, Columbia, Charleston, because if this gets pushed through, every city can practically prey on whomever they wish to get rid of.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Paul, thanks for your time today.
You're welcome, David.
See you next week, man.
All righty.
Stay straight. Later on.
Bye.